All right, so now that we've learned about body points, we can talk about the principles, because we use these body points to align the body. Remember, Bai Hui, Dan Tian, Huiying, bubbling wells. We use these points to create a structure for Tai Chi, because Tai Chi has a very particular structure it wants to do, because we're trying to make the Qi flow in a certain way, the energy to flow in a certain way, the weight to go through the body in a certain way. And we need these points. Once we've learned these points, now we can talk about principles. Principles, remember I talked about we're going to learn the movement parts, but we need to incorporate these principles into the movements, so we're actually doing Tai Chi. Now, I'm going to give you 9 important points, or 9 principles that you need to have or you need to try to put in your Tai Chi. And in the beginning, it's difficult to remember all these because there's 9 of them. So I created an acronym structure so to help you remember. Each letter stands for an important talking point or important point, aka principle. Let's start with S, the beginning of structure. Separate weight. Separate weight. Separate weight. Very important. This is something that's almost unique to Tai Chi. Separate weight means simply we're never splitting our weight equally down into each leg, 50% here and 50% here. Never ever do this. Actually weakens your legs when you stand like this. In Tai Chi, we're either majority in one leg and less in the other, or we're moving in between. And if we're moving, we're always separating the weight. We're always moving from one side to the other. We're never not doing that. So when we do a move, this is what dictates what the upper body does. This dictates timing. This dictates the hands. All right? The separation of weight. And we'll get more into separation of weight, particularly in our walking stance, because this is something that's difficult for people to get introduced into their movement, but it's very important. Can't do it without it. Separate your weight. Number 2, second letter, T, stands for tuck. Tuck the tailbone. So remember I talked about we need structure, and I talked about these points. Well, tucking the tailbone is part of setting up our Tai Chi structure, because we want the energy to run in a certain way, and in order to do that, we need to tuck the tailbone, which means we don't move by sticking out the butt, which most people do. We need to take this lower back and flatten it out by tucking. This straightens up the spine in a Tai Chi way, and it sends the energy up and down the body in a certain way. If you don't tuck, the upper and lower body will be split, they'll be ununified. And I'll talk about that later, because we need to unify the upper and lower body. T, tuck the tailbone. STR, the next letter is R, and this is a real big one. Release and relax. Release and relax. Release and relax. Release the muscles. Relax the muscles. All right? Tai Chi is not a traditional exercise as we know it. In the West, we think about exercising the muscle, which means these linear movements like this. And in Tai Chi, we don't do that. We don't do linear movements, and we're not exercising the way we do in the West. All right, we do exercise the muscles, but we do it in a different way. In Tai Chi, we release and relax so that the muscles are soft, so that the connective tissue in the body, the sinews, the tendons, the fascia, can be worked. Because if you engage your muscle, you don't release the muscle, that tissue is locked in place and it can't be exercised. That's why Tai Chi is practiced soft, because we're trying to change the nature of that tissue. Because in Tai Chi, we want to create this kind of energy called Jin. And Jin can be translated intrinsic energy, intrinsic power, and it's stored in the connective tissue, but the tissue has to be changed. Hence all these principles, all these things. Release, relax, R. Next, U, S-T-R-U. Use mind. Use mind. Use your mind to move. Don't use muscle, like I just indicated before. So when I move, and remember I talked about this dantian point? We bring our attention, our mind down here, and this is where we move from, and we use intent. We're not pushing off the ground. We're not engaging muscle to move. We are turning the waist, which I'll talk about later, and we're using intent to do this. So we're using intent and mind to control the movements, not muscle. Next, C. I just talked about controlling, using the waist. C stands for control with the waist. Control with the waist. Control your movements with the waist. In other words, and this is very important, your waist is the commander. Everything else follows. Everything else listens to the waist. And if the waist moves, everything in the body is moving. If the waist stops, everything stops. It's initiated from the waist. We bring our mind down here into the waist, and then if we want to make a movement, it comes from the waist. The waist tells the other limbs, follow me. It stops, everything stops. It moves, everything moves. So here, I'm not moving my hand independently. It is moved by the waist, the center of my body. And if you're able to move from your waist, you remove clumsiness from the body. C, control with the waist. Control your movements with the waist. And remember, I'll be constantly reiterating all this stuff. We'll hear it again and again and again. Next, T. Take the chest down. Take the chest down. Okay, remember I talked about how we're setting up a structure in Tai Chi, relaxing and taking the chest down, or aka sinking the chest, aka sinking the chest, means we do kind of the opposite of what we were taught. We taught this is good posture, shoulders back, chest out. In Tai Chi, we take the chest down along with tucking under, and this sets up structure. This also allows your energy to go down, because in Tai Chi in the beginning, we want the energy to go down into the ground, everything down. And you'll notice once you start to look and examine these principles in our structure, everything's designed to push the energy down, not take it up. And one thing that happens if you bring your chest up is the energy comes up. So take the chest down so it can go, the energy can go down. All right. Next letter is U. Unify upper and lower bodies. And if you're listening to the rest of the principles, if you incorporate the rest of the principles, this will happen naturally. So this upper body and this lower body have to be unified. They have to act as one. Usually we don't move like that. And that's why I say you can't press off the ground and move the body that way. Moving from the waist, your center unifies. Our structure unifies the upper and lower body so they act as one, because we want to decrease the amount of attention we give to certain things. We want to be pointed in our intention and in our mind, and you need to unify the body so that you're dealing with one unit, not this arm, this leg, this head, the head, all these different things where your mind's bouncing around. So you unify the upper and lower body. Next letter is R. Relax the shoulders, relax the elbows down and in. Relax the shoulders, relax the elbows down and in. And this is something I constantly repeat in class because people want to use their arms. Remember, we have to move from our waist. You see the arms moving, and then you start moving with your arms. In order to do that, the shoulders come up, the elbows come up. And this is bad for your health, actually. You want to bring the elbows down and in, the shoulders down and in. Remember, we talk about these the energy going down. Raise the elbows, energy up. Raise the shoulders, energy up. That's not what we want. We want to go down. So when we perform a movement, or we do a movement, the elbow is down. The pointy part of the elbow is pointing down, not up. If your elbow is up, that means you're trying to control your arm with your arm. And remember, we have to move from the waist. Relax the shoulders down, relax the elbows down. And I'll repeat this again and again and again. And even when you're not doing Tai Chi, pay attention to this. This will help your neck, and this will help a lot of other things. Relaxing these joints down. Now, the last letter is E. The last letter in structure is E. And E stands for extend, extend, extend the top of the head up from Bai Hui, extend up, extend the back of the neck up, and extend the upper back up. So it feels as though, like I said earlier, you're suspended from above. All right? Now notice, this is the back of the body, and this goes up. So we get this feeling of suspended from above. this actually helps bring the energy down. All right. It's kind of like if you have a water balloon, you filled it with water, not all the way, a little bit, and you grab it by the top. That's the idea, the extension up, and you hold it and all the water, chi, goes down. That's kind of what we're trying to do in Tai Chi, and this extending the head up, the top of the head up, extending the back of the neck up, extending the upper back up, helps to facilitate what we're trying to do. Okay, it also shapes the back in a way we want to shape it. All right, so try to remember the principles in structure, okay? And remember, you can always come back to the video, you can take notes, and I will always be saying these things again and again. Now, it might be a lot, it seemed like a lot in the beginning, but after a while, your mind gets used to it, and then it's actually not a lot of stuff. All right, so structure. See you in the next video.